Welcome to Business with Papa. As I always start, I will start now. I want you to be a critical thinker. We'll have a session to talk about that and what that means. Okay, but essentially, I want you to be a questioning person. Don't just take what people tell you as fact. Be your own person. Reach your own conclusions. Don't be led. You are an entrepreneur and you're trying to be a leader. Be one. I talk about my background in episode 1. Tell you what I've been through and why I'm doing this. You should watch that to make a judgment about whether I have anything to share with you that helps you in your journey. Internet's full of a lot of nonsense. Much of it is not helpful. I encourage you to know who you're listening to and the fact that they are giving you something that has value. So with that, this session is going to talk about something that's really generic. It isn't exactly business oriented. Okay, it's life oriented. All right, and it's important for you to have. Okay, and it's core values. Now that might sound a little corny, okay, but I assure you, whatever values you have, they're going to be tested. In my experience, a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, live what I call situational. Something happens, they see it, they think, well, how do I feel about that today? If you ask them the same question 3 or 4 years from now, or 3 or 4 months from now, you might get a completely different answer. It's because they don't have a core set of rules that they live by. Not so much because circumstances have changed. You, as a leader, need to have that because I can guarantee you they're going to be tested. So let me give you an example of that. I had been running the company about 3 or 4 years, maybe 5, I can't remember exactly. And we were doing really well. We were growing. You know, you've heard the story about how the company did. And we were dealing with a major electric utility in this country that had operations all up and down the East Coast. And we were providing them engineering services. And we had just, kind of brought them in as a client within the previous 6 months, 9 months, something like that. And I got a call from my vice president of business development, and here's what he said. So we've got some guys at this particular site, and I met with the buyer, the utility buyer, who signs the contracts, if you don't know how that works, and gives the awards. And he said to me, look, I like you guys. I think you have good talent. You're doing good work for us. I have a lot more work. I'm willing to give it all to you. But for every hour that some of your people work on our projects, you have to put $1 into my personal bank account. Amazing, huh? Big company, lots of rules and structure. And the answer was, if you want to work here and make millions of dollars worth of revenue, you will give me $1 for every hour someone works on this property that I signed the contract to let you do. Astonishing. So that's what I was told. And I said, I will get back to you tomorrow about how I feel about that. So the next day I talked to my officer in charge of business development, who had received firsthand that note. And it was a verbal interaction, of course. Who wants to put that in writing? And I told him this. I said, first and foremost, we're not going to do that. Okay, that's dishonest. And we are not doing it. And I said, that's not where it ends. We are going to contact their central corporate headquarters in their procurement organization, and we're going to speak to the vice president at this electric utility that was in charge of all the various buyers. And we're going to report this individual attempted to demand bribes to provide services to his site. So we did. We were blacklisted from that utility for 5 years. Do I regret it? Not in the least. It was the right thing to do based on my core values. So it will be different, but I guarantee, and there were others, of course. It's just an example. You will be tested. Your character, your company's character, your moral compass of right and wrong. You will be tested. If you don't already know these things or haven't thought about them, I can't encourage you any stronger than this video. You need to think about them. Frankly, you need to think about them for your life because you face them in your life too. You need to establish them, hold to them. I'll grant you that is very hard to do. Sometimes the consequences can be severe, sometimes, but it's the only thing that gives you integrity. It is what is at the core of having lived a life well lived. So what do I mean by core values? I can't tell you what yours are. I can't tell you what's right for you. Only you can decide that. What I can do is tell you mine. Okay? And hopefully, from that example, you can help focus, if you haven't already, what are yours. Okay. First, I believe that you earn everything you get and take. You don't take things you haven't earned. You carry your own weight. You expect to be fairly treated in that process, but you don't take things you haven't earned. Number two, you do not lie. Okay, no, you don't have to be cruel. I don't mean that. Okay, but you do not lie. Invariably, lies will come out into the open. And then what? I watched that in my family as a youngster. Well-intentioned lies, many of which eventually came out into the open. And then what do you say? It's always better to be honest. Number three, you treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, sadly, in some circumstances and with some people, their behavior will not allow you to do that. They require, or it's necessary, to use harsh treatment with them. But in general, you should be treating people the way you want to be treated. I believe you're here on this planet for a mission, each and every one of you. There's something you're here to do. You need to work hard to find it, not give up. Always strive to be the best that you can be. Okay? Years ago, I had an employee that I hired. Shockingly, in the interview process, he shared something with me that has stuck with me over the years. And it's this. He looked across the table at me and he said, "I know who you are." Well, I kind of just interviewed him, so I guess you know who I am. But I wasn't really sure quite what he was getting at. And so I said to him, and I'd never known this guy before, 2 hours before he made this statement. And he said, I said, "Sure, tell me, who am I?" And his response was memorable. And I give it to you to share too. And you may be one of these people too. He said, "You're an umbilical cord person." And I thought, okay, I don't know what that means. So what does that mean? He said, most people are going through life with their figurative umbilical cord in their hand. They're good people. They're hardworking people. In many cases, they're actually very smart people. But what they want is to attach their umbilical cord to a host that will feed them, protect them, give them guidance, lead them, make the hard decisions, and act as a barrier for them to the harsh world. He said, you are one of those people. I thought it was one of the best analogies I had ever heard about what it frankly feels like, at least to be me. That's my fifth core value. I protect those who I feel are under my protection. My wife, my children, my brothers, sisters, parents, my staff. Those 5 key values, core values, are how I live my life. Sometimes it's brutal. It's hard. It's hard to stick to some of those, as you maybe can imagine having heard them. But I do, to the best of my ability. You need core values too. You will have to have them to get through this thing called entrepreneurship and business, and quite frankly, life. I hope today's session has been helpful. It is one of the most important that I give. If you don't know what your core values are yet, you must sit down and decide. Then you know how to live. Until next time, this is Papa saying thanks for joining us.